Gabe, can you hear us in the chambers? Councilor Isom, can you hear us in the chambers?
It says he's on mute. I don't know if he's trying to talk or not.
You are muted if you're trying to speak.
I'm sorry, I called you ma'am.
That's okay. I answered him on anything.
You show that you're muted.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
That's my out. It says to the best of that line, to the best of your ability. That's my out. Hey, Joe. Greg, you can use it when you see. Don't give me a test. Let's see what my ability
I just missed a story.
So we got a full house tonight, huh? Except for Ice, he's got to get
Joe, I'll tell you right now, when we get down to the ordinances, I'm not gonna be able to hear that the first time it's read. I'm not afraid of Alicia. I'm not afraid of her.
That's all gonna be open, right?
But you guys don't have anything anywhere. Hey, don't say hi.
Sometimes they just sit there and it's like they're looking sort of undecided behind us. Yeah, quick call.
I mean, it didn't.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't make it far, I hardly needed any covers. Yeah. Taken from the 7th. No. No.
Who's that sitting next to you? Who's that? Apparently, are you buying supper for everybody after the meeting?
Greg is.
Oh, he is?
Oh, he can, but I don't think I can either. I know, I get it. I liked it. But, yeah. Where you going?
Good evening, or late afternoon. Today's date is September 25, 2023. The time's 5:30 p.m. We are gathered here for a regularly scheduled City Council meeting of Marshalltown at 10 West State Street. Now that we're called to order, would those who are able join us in the pledge?
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Hoop.
Here.
Isom.
Here.
Kell.
Here.
Waddyhoff.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Schneider.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Very good. Full house. And now it's time for public comment. So here's the proviso about that. Members of the public may make comments on any item that was not on the agenda during this time. The speaker shall approach the mic, state your name and address for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes unless the mayor authorizes more than that. Direct your comments to the mayor and council as a whole, and the mayor and councilors are not to engage in discussion or debate on the items raised by members of the public at this time, and no action may be taken on those items in order that we comply with the open meetings laws. The microphone is open. I remembered this time, Gary, instead of going right into the mayor comment.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, thank you.
Well, Jim Shaw, 522 North 2nd Street. Tonight I'm back again on dogs. I've been expressing concerns about controlling our dog population, and I want to make it clear that I am not against dogs in general. I just want them to be under strict control. I've owned 12 dogs, 6 of them Doberman Pinschers, a dog that most people are afraid of. They're all very well trained and always under control. I've been making comments about our dog problem to the city council for several months. I've received comments from some public officials that we don't have a problem with dogs and definitely no problem with pit bulls. It's the owner of the pit bulls. I've shared news stories from around the nation about pit bulls horribly attacking and disfiguring, sometimes killing their victims, both children and adults. Pit bulls that were owned for many years by their owners, and they described them as being gentle, well-behaved dogs until they suddenly snapped. These dogs are bred to fight. But nothing about dog bites closer to home in Marshalltown until now. Imagine my surprise when I received a copy of an email of Chief Tupper to all of you council members, in which he describes the last 3 dogs bites as significant and serious. The comments from the chief states there have been a total of 569 incidents this year. 569. In that email, the chief also stated that it is a large workload. That averages out to about 2 a day from January this year. Guess what? It's a problem. There have been 40 dog bites this year. That averages out to more than 1 a week. Again, that's a problem. In the past 3 months, most recent dog bites involved were pit bulls. One unprovoked attack had to, the adult may have lost a finger. Guess what? That's a problem. Chief Tupper declared this dog vicious. That's supposed to result in a $100,000 liability insurance for a vicious dog, which is almost impossible to get. So I hope somebody's keeping an eye on this dog and its owner. Incident 2, an adult male was bitten in a private residence while caring for someone else's dog. Guess what? Another problem. Incident number 3, another pit bull involved a black Labrador retriever that may have been the cause, charging at the pit bull, causing the pit bull to react and bite his owner. And again, all of these events are a problem. So it does look like we have a problem. I'm curious to know what breeds were in the remaining 37 bites. I'll try and get that information and relate it to the council. The most common breed for biting are pit bulls, followed by German shepherds and Rottweilers. These three breeds account for 75% of all dog bites in the U.S. Guess what? That's a problem.
Mike Tupper, Marshalltown Police Department. I think in fairness, since Mr. Shaw is citing an email that I wrote to the city council about animal control issues, he's accurate. There was over 500 calls. They're not all bites. A lot of them are, dogs barking, dogs running loose of all breed in shapes and sizes, animal welfare checks. It is a large workload. As the city's animal control officer, if you want my opinion, I don't believe we have a problem with pit bulls or dangerous dogs in this community. Like many things, we have a problem with people being irresponsible. But I don't believe that we have an issue that requires an ordinance change or some of the steps that Mr. Shaw would like to see the city pursue. So that's just my 2 cents as your animal control officer. Thank you.
Microphone's still open for public comment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. John Hall with the Marshalltown Area Chamber of Commerce, 34 West Main Street. Welcome, Councilman Nichols, to the table. Good to have you up there. I wanted to take just a couple of quick moments. I had a weird opportunity this afternoon where I didn't have access to my email for a little while, and so and I was sat somewhere without my computer and really without my phone, and so I was able to reflect on a couple of things that really have transpired in the last couple of weeks that I think are worth noting here tonight. We have a new Iowa Valley Community College president coming in, and her family and 2 younger kids are all excited and ready to move here to Marshalltown. We have a new Walmart store manager that I had an opportunity to meet last week. That him and his wife and 2 young kids just moved to Marshalltown. They had opportunities to live in a lot of other communities and chose to be here in Marshalltown. And this is reflecting on a trend that I'm seeing. And these folks in conversations all hit on this trend that there is so many positive things happening here in our community. These folks are taking the opportunity to choose Marshalltown as their place to move them and their families and their young kids. And so we're seeing a lot of our key large employers whose leadership is choosing to be here in Marshalltown. Over the weekend, we had a great Oktoberfest, but specifically I wanted to note one element of it. The parade was not only well attended, well participated in from businesses, community entities, but the local floats, the floats that were put together by our locals, the time, attention, and effort into not only leaning into theme, but really taking that opportunity to be unique and distinct in what they're doing. I've worked in many other communities, some larger, some smaller. Most communities do not do that, and that's really incredible to see, and shows the pride that these churches, these businesses, these individuals have here in our community. We also had 2 new openings today, Need Pharmacy, and then Carl's on the north side, their oil change station and car wash. All of those opened here in Marshalltown today, and so if we were doing a ribbon cutting today, I'd say it's another great day in Marshalltown, but we're not doing the ribbon cutting, but it's still another great day here in Marshalltown. We are doing a ribbon cutting, though, tomorrow on some new JBS apartments, their first building getting completed, and so that will be another reason to say another great day here in Marshalltown. And then within the last couple of weeks, if you haven't been to the outlet co-work space on Main Street, I promise you'll be impressed with not only that asset, what it's going to do in terms of service for office space here in our community, but just the level of finish to that space is really, truly incredible, world-class space that we've got here in Marshalltown. And so I just wanted to take a couple quick moments to kind of do a good news report here before we start the council meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Mike's still open.
Thanks for that segue. I needed that. Dwayne Dixon with the Oktoberfest Board. We had a successful festival over the weekend and had really good turnout, as John mentioned, with the parade. I guess the one to a few people that some of the comments that we had leading up to it was, I guess I told you so, that it did work out better than planned. One of the only real things that I guess I'd like to address, other than thanking everyone that was involved with getting it to actually happen, was feedback with Church and Lynn Street. With it being one way, the traffic was about the only thing that was a real hindrance. So if there's any way of getting that maybe switched to two-way sometime earlier than originally planned, since we're probably going to be in the same location next year, that would be about the only request. So, other than thank you for anyone who attended. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Time for mayor, council, and administrative comments. Mr. Administrator, do you have any comments tonight?
I do have one. I'm excited. It's week 3 and things are going well. I continue to meet people, but one of the things I was excited about was to leave town for a couple of days and go to the Iowa League of Cities Conference, where I'd meet several city administrators and managers I've known before and some new folks. But they say we're always learning, and one thing that I learned was this was the 125th year of the League of Cities. So it was formed in 1873, and it was formed by 5 cities getting together and say we need a unified voice. Cities are getting bigger. We need someone to advocate for us. We need professional level leadership, and we need to do that at the city level. So 5 cities got together 125 years ago. And of course, Des Moines was one of them because it's always been big. Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Muscatine, and this was the news to me, Marshalltown. So Marshalltown was one of the 5 initial members of the League of Cities, and they kind of created this little watercolor that we'll frame and put up in here somewhere because I just think it was neat. But again, like John says, great things are happening in Marshalltown, and that's not new. It's been happening like this forever, and I'm proud to be here.
Very good. Thank you. Any council comments?
If I may.
You may.
Just a little over a week ago, I attended a Marshalltown Bobcat football game, and the Arts and Culture Alliance put on a 1.5-minute video that if you haven't seen, you really need to. I know it's all over Facebook. I believe you can go to the Marshalltown Arts and Culture Alliance. I got a rousing applause from everyone who attended the football game. It was centered around Marshalltown, its students, what we have going and where we're going. And it also really showed a good Marshalltown in a very good light. You know, all too often we tend to listen to negative things, and I'd just like to give a shout out to the Arts and Culture Alliance and the people that were involved with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Any other councilor you'd like to comment? Then we'll go on to item F, consent agenda. I would solicit a motion to approve it, but we were requested to remove item number 6 from it. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Second.
Very good. Roll call first.
Bodyhoff,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell.
Yes.
Very good. Read away.
Approve the minutes for the September 11th, 2023 meeting and a bill list in the amount of $2,612,000.40. Approve the liquor license renewals for Totem Bowl at 1101 South 6th Street with outdoor service, Old Timers Tavern at 401 South Center Street with outdoor service. Resolution 2023-180, setting a public hearing for the proposed vacation of the east-west alley behind 1108 and 1110 West Church Street. Resolution 2023-181, supporting the Iowa Department of Natural Resources application for an Iowa DOT recreational grant for a storage facility at the Nicholson Ford OHV Park. Resolution 2023-182, to approve the 17-month extension of time to complete the city code upgrade and facade work, grant work at 26 East Main Street. Resolution 2023-184, setting a date of meeting at which it is proposed to approve a development agreement amendment with Willard Hopkins LLC, including an annual appropriative tax increment payments. Resolution 2023-185, approving the 2023 update to the Title VI program for the Marshalltown Municipal Transit. Resolution 2023-186, approving contract change order number 6 for the Edgewood Extension Project number STR 19003, a decrease of $8,039. Resolution 2023-187, approving contract change order number 4 for the South 7th Avenue Extension Project number ECO 22001, an increase of $981.50. Resolution 2023-188, approving contract change order number 5 for the South 7th Avenue Extension Project number ECO 22001, an increase of $67,666.15. Resolution 2023-189, approving contract change order number 6 for the State Street Reconstruction Project number STR 21004, a decrease of $33,885. Resolution 2023-190, authorizing offer to purchase right-of-way from 901 North 3rd Avenue and the use of council-designated local option sales tax.
Very good, thank you. On to item number 6. Does anybody wish to move for the passage of that resolution, which I should probably have you read?
Resolution 2023-183, accepting bid and authorizing the purchase of 4 2023 Dodge Durango police package vehicles for the use in the police department as emergency response vehicles and declaring certain property surplus property.
Move to approve, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Gary.
Your Honor, the reason I asked to pull this off the consent agenda, I'd like to make 2 separate amendments on this. The first one being that the police department choose which 2 vehicles to keep rather than trade in or sell. And so I'm making the amendment that we use local option sales tax to purchase those 2 vehicles for the money that the police department would lose in the trade-in or the sale, and keep those 2 vehicles as decoy cars to move around the city. Because we all know when we drive down the street and see a police car parked somewhere, we're going to slow down. We're not going to run that stop sign. And I think it's a small investment to make to hang on to 2 of these vehicles. And in push comes to shove, we'd have them as a backup vehicle down the road. So we'd make that amendment first.
That's a motion to amend. Is there a second to that motion?
I'd amend, or I'd move.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Anybody wish to discuss it up here or to take a roll call?
I would like to hear from Chief Tupper.
Okay.
Good evening again, Mike Tupper, Marshalltown Police Department. I appreciate the idea. I don't think using cars as decoys is an effective traffic calming tool or enforcement tool. There's a reason we're not already doing that. It just doesn't really work that well. I'm concerned that we'd just be keeping vehicles that really aren't worth much to us, and they're just going to become in worse condition as they're sitting around, not getting utilized. We have vehicles. I mean, we try not to run vehicles 24/7. We have vehicles in our fleet that we could park as decoys if you want us to try that somewhere. I don't think we need to keep 2 cars to do that. But I would tell you that in my experience, 31 years, using vehicles as decoys is not really an effective traffic calming or enforcement tool. And that's why we're not doing it now. So I would prefer that we trade in the vehicles to get that value of trade-in to reduce the costs of what it's going to cost us to purchase these vehicles. We have a tight budget, and We already have some concerns, staff has some concerns, that as it stands now, without making these changes, it's going to be challenging to make sure that the vehicles are properly equipped. And as you know, we've been trying to find police vehicles for almost 2 years. And the opportunity to purchase these 4 vehicles is just too good to pass by because we don't know when we're going to get them again. And I would recommend that we stay with the original proposal. I appreciate the idea, but that's my recommendation anyway. Be happy to answer questions.
Anybody else up here have questions or comments? And if not, I'd open that one to the public. Roll call.
Schneider,
No.
Thompson,
Yes.
Hoop,
Oh.
Isom,
No.
Kell,
No.
Bodyhoff,
No.
Nichols.
No.
Okay. Was there a second motion?
Your Honor, if I may, I move that the logoing and the wrapping of the two vehicles and logoing of the other 2 vehicles be done here in town and not outsourced out of town. Keep the money in town. So I'd make that as a motion, as an amendment to this motion.
I think everybody heard the motion to amend. Is there a second to that one?
I'll second.
Discussion on that one? Starting
So-
up here.
So my question would be, is there anybody that could tell us what a price difference is between those 2?
Or if I may hop in, better yet, where does this get done currently?
We're already doing it locally. We did the last cart sign creations here in town. Historically, we used to use S&S Auto. They would help us with the decal and logoing, and we found out that they are outsourcing that work. So now we're using sign creations. So the police department tries to spend money locally whenever we can. We used to try to purchase these cars locally, but the local vendors aren't able to help us currently because of the difficulty in getting cars. But I agree, we should spend money locally, and we're already doing that.
Other discussion or questions by the council or by the public? Roll call.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Bodyhoff,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Okay, that amendment did carry, and now we'll vote on the resolution as amended.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Bodyhoff,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
That carried. On to motions, we have 2. What's the first one?
Motion to approve a new Special Class B retail native wine license for Lily Mae Chocolates.
Floor is open for motion.
Motion approved, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion?
Yes, Your Honor, this is a new alcohol license for Lily Mae, so they can do chocolate dip wine bottles.
Any comment up here? Any discussion out there?
Your Honor, I have a question, if I may.
You may.
What happens to the wine in the bottles before they dip them?
I can't answer that.
Any public comment on this one? Roll call.
Nichols,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Hoop,
No.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Bodyhoff.
Yes.
I'll tell you what's intoxicating is just walking into Lily Mae's on 13th Street. Man, that smell is good. Oh, okay, second motion.
Motion to approve a 5-day alcohol license for Midnight Ballroom at the Central Iowa Fairgrounds Arena for a rodeo on October 1st with outdoor service.
Move for approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Your Honor, Midnight Ballroom is hosting a rodeo at the fairgrounds on October 1st. This is a 5-day event license, and the fairgrounds will move their license to the activities building during this event.
Similar to what we've done in past events like this?
Yes, and I
Okay.
believe Louise is here if you have any questions.
Okay. Comments, questions by the council or by the public? Roll call on this one.
Thompson,
Yes.
Oh.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Okay, on to ordinances. We just have one of those, and I needed to have you read it slowly because Gary said he might not catch it the first time.
Public hearing and third reading of ordinance 15071 to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Marshalltown, Iowa by repealing Chapter 151, Sections 151.001 through 151.003, Building Code, and adopting a new Chapter 151, Sections 151.001 through 151.003, Building Code, which adopts by reference the 2021 International Building Code, the 2021 International Residential Code, the 2021 International Existing Building Code, 2021 International Mechanical Code, 2012 International Energy Conservation Code, 2021 Uniform Plumbing Code as adopted by the state of Iowa, and the 2020 National Electrical Code as currently used by the state of Iowa, and the National Fire Protection Association Chapters 54 and NFPA 58 with certain amendments.
Is it my imagination, or is she getting faster at that? Is there a motion to approve that one?
Your Honor, public hearing.
Public hearing, I'm sorry. I declare the public hearing is open right now at 5:55 PM. Did we receive any written comments with the clerk's office?
No, Your Honor.
Time for public comments on this one. And then time for staff review. Chief? Third reading, so I'm not going to put the timer up for you.
Okay, appreciate it. Dave Ryers, Marshalltown Fire Department. All this is doing is updating our codes. This is the international series is a consensus code, and what we're doing is we're just going from the 2015 edition to the 2021 edition. There were not a lot of changes to 2018, so that series of codes did not get adopted, but there are some changes in 2021, so we went to that. And then we've already adopted the 2021 fire code. We did that several months ago. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Hearing none, I would move it to council comments, if any. And if there aren't any of those, I'll declare the public hearing is closed at 5:57 PM. And I don't think I did call for a motion to approve it yet, did I? So
Motion to approve, Your Honor.
do that one.
Second.
Roll call.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Very good. On to discussion items, which is earlier than we usually are at this point. First one being Chapter 50 Garbage and Refuse Amendment. Anything to add to that? Okay. Heather.
Good evening, Heather Thomas, Public Works Director. This stems from a discussion item from about a month ago related to how we want to handle garbage and refuse in town. For a long time, we've had an ordinance that required residents to have their containers within 5 feet of the front of their house. We have had a hauler invest in equipment that provides for automated pickup, which requires that container or receptacle to be out by the curb. That was brought up to the council's attention a month ago, and the direction from that meeting was to go back and talk to our licensed haulers and get some input. So in that memo that is in your packet, I have summarized the discussion that we had a month ago at council, and I've also just summarized some of the comments we received back from our licensed haulers. I would like to thank our 4 licensed haulers for their input, and also several of them are here this evening as well and can provide additional input and discussion. Some of the main terms and items that were brought up were that automated pickup and arm-assisted pickup, those have to be a specific container for them to be able to do that. That's called a toter in many of those situations. There was a concern brought up that if the city switched to this type of service, there would be a population of Marshalltown that wouldn't be able to get their containers down to the curb. At this time, there'd still be an option for residents to utilize one of the services that do provide collection at the house itself. Even Moeller, who has the automated truck, does have the option for assisted collection to be able to go and assist those individuals. Those that did not have an automated truck felt that if we do allow collection at the curb, they would like to also be able to collect at the curb. Staffing is a struggle not only for Moeller, who invested in that equipment, but for all of the licensed garbage haulers. We have 4 of them currently in town. At the time that they pick up recycling, it's generally the same day, but it may not be the same trip. They, right now, require their customers to have garbage out by between 5 a.m. and 7:30 a.m., depending on which licensed hauler they're using. I've also provided that 2 of the companies currently pick up 5 days a week in town. One picks up 4 days, and the other one is mostly Friday with a little bit on Wednesday. Also, currently, we have in our code that enforcement is on the garbage haulers themselves and not the city. So with that, I'll leave it to see if there's any discussion items. Otherwise, I can hop into some potential middle ground that we talked to the haulers about. I'd also open it up if any of the haulers wanted to speak as well.
I'd be tempted to have you jump to the middle ground and then open it up for discussion up here and with the haulers.
You bet. So I'm going to open the current ordinance as we've kind of talked through. There are some items in here that were more administrative changes, but there's really 4 sections that I felt were potentially areas for further discussion. So the first one is the types of the receptacles. Right now we had in there that the owner needed to supply that container, and the largest it could be was 30 gallons. Most of the containers out there today are larger than 30 gallons. There are some 30 gallons. So as a consensus, I felt that all of the garbage haulers were in agreement with proposing to change that to 55 gallons if it's a owner-provided receptacle. We also added a section in here that there could be a hauler-supplied receptacle. We talked about it needed to have rolling wheels, attached lids, clearly listed with the company's name and phone number, and then also have an identifiable code that the hauler keeps track of. That helps with what happens if your container gets lost or stolen and picking up kind of items in there. So that was added in there, and we also clarified that the containers for commercial properties are different, and those would be supplied by the hauler and provided and approved by the city. So those were the changes to the types of receptacles. To the best of my knowledge, I do not think there's any disagreement from the haulers in that language that we've changed. Feel free to come up here if I've misspoke. Okay. The next section that is probably the larger item that has some varying viewpoints is the location of the receptacle. What we have in here now is a middle ground where we would allow certain containers at the curb, but not all containers. The containers that we would allow at the curb are those hauler provided, like the toters that I talked about that have the wheels, the lids, the names, the numbers. The reason why we want to go to something that is more consistent, not saying that every house has to have the same container, but the same style of container provided by the hauler, because we are looking for something that can withstand wind. We don't want some of the 30-gallon containers that you can go out to Tyson's, Menard, Walmart, wherever, and purchase, and they always seem to tip over. The bottom is actually smaller than the top in some cases. So we're looking for something that's going to withstand, have some stoutness to it. We also added in here that we would allow the containers to be set out for the owner or the hauler supplied at the curb no earlier than 8 p.m. the day prior and have to be back by 2 a.m. the day after. We made those times to accommodate those individuals that work shifts, so they had the ability to get in and out. So we've allowed, like I said, the haulers at the curb for those meeting those specs, and in that we would say that the container could be no closer to 2 foot of the curb or the edge of the road, no further back than 4 feet, and needs 4 foot of clearance on all sides so that the truck can operate. I would say that is a good summary of the changes we've made in that section. Do we want to discuss that, or do you want me to move on to the next 2 sections?
If there's any disagreement with that by the haulers, let's ask for a hand raised. Okay.
Hi, Wade Lamb, Area Sanitation. I just feel that in fairness, I don't think it should necessarily be required by the city that the customers put it to the curb. But if some are going to be able to put it to the curb, then I think everybody ought to be able to put it to the curb. The way we do it is we generally put the cans so that they don't blow back up the driveway after they've been dumped. We generally don't have curbside service, but there may be some cases where it would be convenient for us to go to picking up from the curb. So we'd like to have the option, even if it is a customer-provided container. We try to stash containers behind bushes on windy days or around the corner of the house to make sure they don't end up out in the road. So that would be my only, I think if you're going to do it for one customer, then all customers should have the option to put it out to the curb. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Duncan, LeGrand Sanitation here for Kim Keen. He feels the same way. If it's able to put it on for one at the curb, it should be for all. That was his only opinion.
Yeah, and so for both of those, the difference between what we have written here and what they're requesting is that they would like even owner-supplied containers at the curb, not just the hauler-supplied ones. Okay. I will move on to section 50.21. This talks a little bit about the license of the garbage hauler. In here, we talked a little bit about enforcement in some of our meetings and how to handle that. One of the ideas that was thrown around was that we segmented town into 4 or 5 sections, and that each section had a day of the week. So the northeast corner all had to be picked up on Monday. And the reason we proposed that was that we would be able to tell if people had their containers out early or late and have an ability to enforce that. That was not favorable by the haulers. They liked the ability to choose, keep their routes, and like I said, we don't have everybody in town all 5 days a week, so that would change how they operated. The middle ground that was proposed by one of the haulers is that they would be willing to provide us their coverage area. So each of the haulers would provide us a map saying this is the section of town they do that day of the week. Again, that's where that importance of having their name on the bin comes into play. So if there's a complaint about a garbage container being at the curb on a Tuesday, we have a ability to say, no, that that pickup is on a Thursday for that hauler in that area. And then also that came into play with the bin identification numbers on each of the hauler provided ones. And then the last section that was added in here was section 50.049. Talks about enforcement. I think we left this one intentionally a little bit vague, that we would handle this if the city chose to enforce it the same way that we would handle code enforcement through that process, and that process and fee schedule for penalty would be set by city fee schedule on an annual basis. So with that, I'll open it up for further discussion.
Let's start up here. Any comments up here?
Heather, I'm just worried about if we just open it up like that to everyone, and I understand what a problem this is for the haulers. To thank them for coming up and helping. Is I really think the town needs to be divided into sections, and I know that's a change in your operation, but if we're going to go to curbside, you guys are kind of getting a little something. If we go to where the town is sectioned off, then the rest of the people aren't driving around looking at garbage cans no matter where you go in town. I think this is something that can be done. I understand you don't want to do it. It's a change in your operations. You know, I know a manship is tough to, being able to hire enough people. But I understand that at these other towns that do it like this, the city is actually picking it up. And the city has we do not want to do your job. We just don't. But I think that for my support anyway, you're going to have to divide the town up into sections, and that's the day that you pick up that day.
Your Honor. Echo what Mike's saying. The things I think I'd add to it is I'd prefer to only see hauler supplied bins at the curb. And also maybe in the licensing application, you have to offer house pickup to those people who can't get their bins out to the curb or prefer not. And the pricing's up to the haulers at that point.
Your Honor, if I may?
You may.
And I may be wrong, but I think Moeller and Stones provide were they 65 and 95? Okay, can one of you come up here and explain to me, is that like when I had my commercial business where every month I paid for the use of the dumpster? Do you bill them on a monthly basis for supplying your can? Or is it a one-time fee? Then I have a couple follow-up questions, if I may.
Gabe Stone, Moeller Sanitation. Just to answer your question, Gary, our service comes with either a 65-gallon kit or a 95-gallon can. So it's a true volume-based system. Customers will pay for overages if they have material that is outside of the garbage can. We charge them. It also encourages recycling because they get charged to use the recycling system that we have.
Okay, so Gabe, you'd have a set, for me, you'd have a fee for if I want a 65, then you'd have another fee if I wanted a 95.
Correct. Currently, we have two different fees.
And then you would have a different fee if I leave it by the house?
Correct.
Or if I put it by the curb?
Correct. Potentially.
Okay, so my follow-up is, I think the problem that people have with everybody putting their stuff on the curb, and I don't want to get into the sectioning, you know, I mean, but the biggest complaint I've heard is, like these pictures that are on there, you see people with loose garbage bags out there and things like that. What would it take for the four of you to provide 65 and 95 containers for every customer you have, and then you, if the direction we go is you charge them more if they put it on the curb, or charge them more if they don't put it on the curb, or charge them less if they do put it on the curb, but we just eliminate all the private cans, and we enact an ordinance that everybody has to have an approved container from the hauler. Is that a huge undertaking for you? I mean, that's a big outlay of capital.
That's a very big investment for all haulers to provide their own cans. We have chose to do it approximately 10 years ago. For the simple fact that it is cleaner looking. We were providing curbside service in surrounding towns. The lack of essentially workforce we've had to deal with. We can eliminate 1 to 2 personnel on our trucks by just having the automated truck running in town. We're not getting any younger, all of us haulers. It's backbreaking work, guys. There's technology we've invested in, and nobody really wants to do our job.
So Gabe, is it fair to say it's a deal breaker if we mandated that you guys provide containers?
I can't speak for all the haulers.
But is it a deal breaker for you if you had to go out and invest in, I'm assuming that's hundreds, possibly thousands of containers?
We already are doing that. My company is, yes.
Because, you know, the point I'm trying to make is, if we go to having on the curbside, I think people would rather look at one of your containers than look at some loose bags. And I don't know how, Your Honor, everybody, I don't know how we get around knowing when their pickup is, you know, so I almost have to default to Mike and Jeff that, again, I don't know what the answer is on this. Thank you, Your Honor.
So question for you, like on the one photo where they have the trash on the outside, that's an extra charge, right?
The one on the left, is that what you're talking about?
That's correct.
Well, first of all, I don't believe that's our can, and I think that might be a.
Looks like a customer can.
It was a private one.
Yeah, that's a customer provided can, so I can't even tell you what size that is looking at it. I can tell you the two sizes.
I would say 30 or 60.
Right. So without us providing the can, it's hard to charge that customer.
So the other haulers, when they have a set size that's customer provided, how do you deal with the things on the outside?
We would charge extra for the baggage on the outside.
Solid waste, if they, our prices are volume. Our prices are volume-based, so if you're paying for up to 60 gallons a week and you have a 60-gallon can, if you have extra trash, there would be an extra charge. The problem with providing a set-size container and to eliminate bags outside is, say, upcoming, we've got Christmas around the corner. The volume of garbage at a residential house for at least 2 weeks, prior and 2 weeks after, from cleanup and then cleanup afterwards, is going to be through the roof. There's, so then you would have to, in order to eliminate bags outside the provided container, you may have to drop off a third or a fourth container for that 1 month and then go back and pick it up. Because they're just, for that, it wouldn't be cost effective to have enough containers for those spring cleanup days all year round. As far as us providing containers to everybody, even if you could get them for $100 a piece, if I had to go out and buy 1,000 of them, that's $100,000. As far as segmenting the town, we only run 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday. So whatever section you have designated for Mondays, I'd have to rearrange everything and bring people in from a 4-day work week to a 5-day work week. So those would be my concerns for the items mentioned so far.
On the maps, Wade, that was a great, with this division in town, of the town, excuse me, I would almost request that maybe in each district that we could run possibly 2 days, if that's the way you guys would want to go. Then it wouldn't alleviate any of the haulers, that maybe there could be 2 days in each district.
It would be our consensus that if you're going to mandate that there has to be hauler supplied totes, that we would just pick ours up at the house, continue to pick up at the house if you mandated for hauler supplied totes. Because that is a major expense, so that would be our consensus. If you do break down to areas, we are only in the area, we do more rural pickup than we do in the city of Marshalltown. So we're in the area on Friday. So to say that we have to split Marshalltown into even like 4 areas and we have to be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that would almost require us to have more labor, and not only that, we'd have to have another truck.
Other comments by the council?
Your Honor?
Yeah.
I think it goes without being said, but Gabe, I think Moeller's taking a black eye on this. As this picture shows, this isn't a Moeller sanitation issue. You drive around town, you see residential supplied containers, everything. So no matter what we do, enforcement has to be at the core of whatever decision is made.
And I want it to be clear that we're not trying to put anybody out of business with the investment that we've made. We've just know that there's a better way to pick up the garbage. So,
Anybody else up
Any other
here
questions?
with comments or questions? Otherwise, I'll open it up to the public, other than the haulers. Well, the haulers are invited to speak as well.
Do you guys have anything else?
How y'all doing? My name's Jake. I'm with Stone Sanitation. I'm the lead driver out there. We work 5 days a week in town. I just think if you divide it into sections, you're going to put us, Moeller area, and LeGrand all in the same area on the same day. I think that's dangerous. I don't think it's a good idea. We got big trucks. They're empty. They're 30,000 pounds. That's a lot of weight. And if you put us in a school area, that's even more dangerous. All 4 companies in the same area at the same time. So that's all I got.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to add that unless it's mandated that it goes to the curb, we're going to continue to do things from up at the house. We'll come up the driveway and get the garbage, the same way we've been doing it since I was a little kid. And then like I say, we try to stash cans back up by the, halfway up the driveway. On windy days, we try to stash them behind bushes around corners so you don't have to come home from work and chase your garbage can and your lid down the street on a windy day. Some of you might have our service already that can attest to that. So as far as whether curbside is allowed or not, we're probably going to continue in the vast majority of the cases to just continue to go up the driveway after the garbage.
Thank you. At this point, staff is probably looking for some direction. Anybody want to give direction to staff?
I would say, based on that last comment, the proposal is that middle ground that meets that, right?
That was our attempt, so that those individuals, those two companies that would like to continue not providing a hauler supplied receptacle have the ability to continue to pick up at the house.
I'd say the remaining issue we have is, do we enforce which days each district can be picked up in? I'm in favor of that still.
Are you in favor of that for just the totes that are down at the curb, or all?
The problem is, we're still going to have garbage out every single day if we don't do this. And I think that's what the main complaint of constituents is, we need some uniformity so we don't have garbage outside all the time. And then, from the city side, we can actually enforce something. I think even if we know which hauler is picking up where, you still can't enforce that realistically. There's just too many homes.
Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'd just like to echo on Jeff Schneider's comment. I think we hear quite often the ability to enforce nuisances and ordinances. This gets to the very fact of what we're continuing to hear time and time again, and so I share Jeff's sentiment with regards to having that in place.
Thank you.
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
Heather, what is the fine right now for the people that put their garbage out on the curb?
It's not clear in our code, so it would probably defer to code enforcement right now, because right now it's supposed to be enforced by the hauler themselves. That's not happening. Right now, if you looked at our code, the penalty would be the cost of abating the nuisance, so removing the trash can from the curb, putting it back at the house. There's also a $100 administration fee and a $6 postage fee. But again, I think if that's the direction we're headed, we're probably coming back with a different proposal on master fee schedule in relation to this.
So is it like other ordinances? We send them a letter and they have 30 days to put the garbage back by the house?
I think that's why we would need to be coming back with a city fee schedule revision if this is the direction we go, because that is currently what we do. Sometimes it's 7 days, sometimes it's 14, sometimes it's 30, 60, depending on what it is.
Your Honor, can I try a motion? I'd like to direct staff to work with the haulers to see what kind of map we can put together with fixed pickup dates, and then also a city recommendation on the fee schedule for ordinance enforcement.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Anybody feel the need to have more discussion?
Hi, Tanya Lamb with Area Sanitation. We weren't at the haulers meeting, so I would just say this is the first time when the private haulers met with the city. So this is the first time that we're hearing about the areas being sectioned off to 1 day. The first time we're hearing about the bins being numbered, all that. So it's all just kind of new to us. So I would say that kind of changes. It doesn't necessarily change our stance. We're indifferent about whether it's allowed to be at the curb or not. We're indifferent about that, but obviously it adds a lot more into it that we were not aware of until just now. So.
Thank you.
Dwayne Dixon, 200 South 11th Street. I'm not a hauler or even a customer, but from a public comments perspective of everything that's been discussed so far, I think one common thing that you'll probably get from almost anyone if you ask from in town is, if just one thing to enforce would be that it has to be in a container, whether it be customer provided, service provided, whatever, just that it's in a container. Doesn't matter if it's at the curb or at the house. But the loose bags is probably the biggest issue, because when raccoons or critters get into it overnight, they tear them open, and now you've got garbage all over, and that's probably a bigger nuisance than anything that's been discussed so far. Thank you.
I can't help myself but comment that one of the people in our neighborhood has that such a continual problem that one time when there wasn't any overflow, I almost called the police to do a welfare check on them.
Your Honor, I'd like to amend my motion to make sure that we include the language that we discussed already in this meeting. And then I think I would actually like to add that to the motion as well, that trash has to be in a receptacle of some sort.
Is there a friendly second to that friendly amendment?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Let's call the roll.
Could I have that whole motion read back to me as amended?
Hi, Mickey McDonald, 923 South 11th Avenue here in Marshalltown. As an actual customer of area sanitation, my one thought process while hearing all of this was, what if the haulers worked a schedule within themselves to meet those section needs? So like, because I know they do from like 5 to 7, what if they coordinated with each other of, okay, hey, we're in this section, this company's here from 5 to 6, the next company's from 6 to 7, if that makes sense, if that would be doable for you guys, that we can kind of have that middle ground. I don't know. That was just my thought process.
Yeah, I would just say to that it's really hard to pick up at a certain time. We don't have set times because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if there's a truck issue or a labor issue or just a heavy day. Again, Christmas time, holidays, when you're running heavy, it slows you down. So I would say would be a hard adjustment to make.
Your Honor, if I may ask a question?
Okay.
Specifically for area, for you going to a section system that the motion is here, you have customers, you pick up, you said 1 or 2 days a week in town? 4 days. And it was 1 day. So LeGrand, but your customers are in all sections, correct? So we would actually be forcing you to come to town, whatever the number of sections, if we go 4 or 5 sections.
A large majority of our route is rural.
Yeah, we're going to put you out of business then.
I don't know about out of business, but you're going to make it inconvenient.
You're going to have to spend a lot more money on
I
fuel.
mean, I'm just the office manager, so that would be something my boss would have to answer.
And then for the company that's spending 5 days in town already, if we go to 4 sections, do you even have the staffing to add that 5th day to the 4th day?
We have the staffing. We have, right now, we currently have. Kevin Balkman, Stone Sanitation. We currently have two trucks running in town 4 days a week and one truck a day, or one truck 5 days a week. Right now, for 4 of those days, we have them separated in different areas of town. We're like, on Mondays, we have one truck over on the north side, one truck over on the south side. And we alternate those pretty much every day except Friday, where we have one of our trucks that's a residential truck that runs in Roland. So for the majority, 4 days a week, we have 2 trucks running in completely different areas of town doing residential pickups. So.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Kelly Duncan, LeGrand Sanitation. So this is a major undertaking when you're talking about separating the town out into areas. I mean, it would have to be something that every sanitation company would have to get together. And I mean, it's not like it's something that could be done overnight. When we were in this meeting, it was our understanding that it was going to be either hauler-provided containers or keeping it up at the door. So, I mean, if you guys are going to talk about separating it tonight into areas, maybe we could just give that a little more thought.
The motion was just to direct staff to work with you guys to bring forward a proposal that then we could discuss again.
And Sarah,
Heather, let me ask you a question. How many of the haulers have hauler-provided containers? Two?
Two primarily. There's some, area sanitation also has some carts out there, but they're not widely used by their customers. But Moeller has all of their containers primarily being used by a hauler provided, and Stone has a fair number.
Okay, how about we do this? If you're doing curbside pickup with your own containers, those have to be mapped or in the city divided thing. Okay, if you are picking up beside the house, like mine is, okay, you do not have to adhere to the map. Okay? How does that sound? Do you guys think that could be worked out? Because now we're talking about two people working out when you can do it.
We have a motion on the floor, Your Honor. Can we do that? Or if you want to try to amend, Mike?
Your Honor, we have an amended motion to an emotion. I called a question.
Motion at hand is motion for staff to work with the haulers to amend the ordinance to a specific pickup schedule by ward and accept the draft language that was presented this evening, which includes a requirement for trash to be in a receptacle.
Well, let's go ahead and call the question. Let's call the roll.
Thompson?
No.
Hoop? Isom?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Lottiehoff? No. Nichols?
No.
Schneider?
Yes.
That failed.
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
In defense of everybody, and thank you, Councilman Kell nailed this earlier. This all comes back down to an enforcement issue. Well, besides Gabe getting his hand slapped for doing something illegal, against our ordinance. But this comes down to, it's on us to enforce the garbage that's out everywhere. And do we need to tackle that question first, before we figure out how to impose something on these haulers? And I guess I'm looking for direction on that.
The discussions that we've had internally would be that we would handle this similar to code enforcement nuisance, but with the modification that Alicia can explain a little bit about being able to ticket on site and not having a letter go out that gives them 7, 14, 30 days. It's maybe we have a process in place where we get, they get one slap on the hand, like they get a warning, no fine. But then in our system, we track if they're repeat offenders, they start getting fined for subsequent events. I think Alicia says we have a similar system with fire.
So with our fire code violations, we created it's almost like a parking ticket citation. And so when people respond to the call, they issue the citation right then and there on site. So we could create something similar to this where it's a ticket you're literally going to drop on the front door of the customer if you find that their trash is out on a non-pickup day, because the haulers advised they'd be willing to let us know when customer pickup days were. So it could be more of an immediate thing instead of having to go back and issue letters.
Your Honor? Alicia, or Heather, do we have the manpower to even do this?
No, we do not.
Your Honor, Your Honor, and I guess, Gary, to your point, that the whole point of having this discussion, which was the amended motion that was in place, was we're not able to enforce it in the current manner, so we have to make it manageable if we're going to try to enforce it. So if we don't want to change it and what the amended motion that failed, then that means that we don't want to enforce it. So we can't have both and sit there and go on our merry way. It's one or the other. We either don't enforce the ordinance as it exists or we change the ordinance.
Sir Administrator.
One thing I've noticed is I think we do need to look at our codes enforcement process, and this is an opportunity, I think, to do that. And how do we do things, and could we do it a little bit quicker, and do we need to put more personnel on it, quite frankly? But I want to just kind of focus to really what this was about, is one hauler has started mandating their customers to put their container on the curb, which is against the city ordinance. So we need to amend the city ordinance for that to be possible, and staff is supportive of that. Several residents, that would be a struggle. So giving them the opportunity to go under the existing system would be best. So that's what we've proposed. We didn't propose the routes, and quite frankly, from a city standpoint, one of the haulers mentioned what one of those trucks weighs. We've got all of those trucks on all of our streets every day, which isn't great. But it's quite an undertaking to change that. We would have a meeting with the haulers if that's what you want. It would be a tough meeting, quite frankly, to divide it up. So I think sticking with the initial staff recommendation of let's give the option for curbside. Let's make the differentiation of the owners of the container, whether it's allowed or not, and put the onus on my back to improve our enforcement.
Thank you. Well, the way we stand, the motion failed, so if anybody wants to make another motion to direct staff.
I'd like to make a motion that we just keep focused on the curbside pickup of vendor-supplied trash cans and the other option to be available per the original recommendation.
Is there a second to that motion?
Can I ask for clarity, Your Honor?
You can.
Are you creating a new motion, or are you trying to reiterate what was already proposed?
Well, okay, I'm trying to reiterate what was originally proposed minus the segments.
I think that's what's in staff's direction already, is that, because the segments aren't in there.
Okay. And I think staff understands that.
I'm confirming what Jeff just said.
Right, okay. So I'll let that die for lack of a second if that's what the understanding is, and staff has direction that way. Al Hoop and I are the only two that were here about 10 years ago when the former mayor tried to make a pass at trying to have it be a citywide pickup to help on our streets. And that went down in flames worse than anything else I've seen other than extending the runway about 8 years ago. And so I don't think we're going to go there, given our current structure.
Your Honor, I want to clarify what direction we're giving. So if a hauler has a hauler provide toter, their customers can, if they choose to, put it on the curb. If they do not have that toter, then their garbage has to stay by the house. Is that what I just heard?
That's currently how the ordinance amendment in front of you is written.
I would still like to see no trash bags out there that you have to be in a receptacle. I'd actually make that motion to add that language.
I actually think that's in there.
It's in there.
It's in there. My understanding right now is the haulers are responsible for enforcing that.
And that part is dropped, and you're right, that the hauler will work with us. We're not asking them to continue to do something that's impossible, to be the sheriff for us. Is that correct?
Right now and previously, the language in the ordinance has always stated that the trash must be in a receptacle. There's never been an allowance for them to be in bags.
So, Your Honor, so basically, if we move forward with this, we're basically nudging all haulers to go to a provided container.
If they want to pick up curbside.
My fear is we're fixing nothing by doing this, other than making it legal for curbside pickup, which is fine. But we're not fixing anything.
We're making it legal to do what's already happening.
Yeah. But we also can send staff back to come up with an idea that might work to actually enforce what has been on the books for some time easier, even if it requires more staff. Oh, was in the amendment? Okay. Well, to make an executive decision, and I know, Sarah, you got up about 4 times to talk, but let's cut it off right now. If staff needs further direction, come back to us in the future. Otherwise, I think you kind of know where we're going.
I think Counselor Nichols made a motion.
I didn't hear a second was the problem.
Okay. So no, we don't have direction then.
I'd make the motion that to direct staff is what they've laid out in their proposal.
Second.
Let's try that one. Roll call.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Well, that was easy. Thank you. Okay.
So may I, point of order, Your Honor, do the haulers understand what we're doing now?
The ordinance that's in front of you tonight was emailed out to all of the haulers. We did have a meeting discussing it that we put together that language at. I think the 4 points that I went over this evening is where we're at right now for the direction moving forward. There is no discussion on segmenting town at this point. Still provides you all the opportunity to continue as operating as you are today by picking up at a house, but also providing for a legal way for a container to be at the curb.
So Gabe got his hand officially slapped then, is that correct?
If you look at the photos on the screen in front of you, all three of those containers are not molar containers. So I think there was a bigger issue besides the issue that was brought up.
He's dragging us into the 20th century, whether we want to or not.
The 20th?
All right, thanks. Let's go on to the next discussion item, which is the McFarland Clinic request for temporary parking accommodations.
Good evening, Heather Thomas, Public Works. I'm going to pull up a memo and then I'm going to invite McFarland Clinic to come up here to the podium. McFarland Clinic has done a massive investment in town, building their new facility out on East Merle Hibbs Road. East Merle Hibbs Road is a road that the city extended here several years ago. When they did that extension, in this photo you can see we extended the current street configuration that is currently next to Walmart. It's a road width that allows for one direction of travel in each way and a center turn lane. The area that we're talking is this pink in the center here. The solid line was existing road. The dashed line was potential proposed in a previous comprehensive plan. The area that we're talking here, again, McFarland is the blue property. Merle Hibbs has been extended to just past their property now with the plans that this road continues in the future over to Governor Road. Now, whether that road it gets extended 2 years out, 20 years out, will be a developer to make that determination on when that happens. But that area has been designated as mixed use. In other words, there's a belief that that area could serve both a commercial and a residential need in this community, and it's really going to be developer driven. So I've taken two of the developments and overlaid them on an aerial photo the best I could. This right here is the VA clinic that's currently under construction, and this right here is the McFarland Clinic. They have indicated some issues with parking with their new site, and they are working to address those. But in a temporary measure, they're requesting this meeting this evening, and at this time I'd like to invite Deb or Ron from McFarland to come up.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to talk tonight and make our request. Again, also thank you to the city and for all the support that you've given us over the last couple of years as we developed our new property. We were one of the Oktoberfest number 78 and the 101, as I understand, parade, and the theme was very fitting for us this year. There's no place like home, and we're very happy to be in our new home. So thank you for letting us visit. I'm going to turn it over to Ron Franson. He's the Executive Director of our facilities of McFarland Clinic, and we'll present our request.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Ron Franson. I'm the Executive Director of Facilities for McFarland Clinic. we're here tonight to ask for a variance or a little bit of a buy, I guess is what we're looking for. We developed our facility with the intention of our parking lots hitting our needs, and our growth has been so outstanding, especially us just getting moved into it, that we've realized that we do need to add additional parking. So what we're in the process of doing right now is adding to our west parking lot. We're doing the civil design work, and we're also going to bump a little section out on the south side of our parking lot to wrap around the south side of the facility. In total, we're looking to add about close to 80 spots. It'll depending on how the layout goes with the final design work. But so we're going to expand both the patient parking and then also the provider and staff parking. So in that process, though, we still have a little struggle. We have a struggle that we don't have enough parking, and some of our staff are having to park out on the street so that our patients have close parking. So we're averaging about 8 to 10 vehicles a day that has been currently parking out on Merle Hibbs Boulevard. And we've learned that the street is not designated for parking, but hasn't been had the signage installed yet. So we didn't realize that we're actually causing a problem. So what we're asking for is that we're in the process of trying to get the parking lot designed, earthwork done this fall, and then we hope to have the concrete poured in the spring. But we're looking for a variance, or the correct terminology you can help me with, but just to allow us to continue to be able to park out on the street when needed. We do have some peak days that it's absolutely where we do need to be there, but then other than that, most days we're able to be within our parking lot. So we're at that tipping point in our parking lot design. So tonight we're here to ask if it's feasible to allow us to continue to be able to park up through, and we're just putting a date out there of September, because we'll just say 1 year, if there's a possibility of that time frame, because we're really dealing with construction. We would love to have the parking lot done right away, but simply we're up against weather and time. So we won't be able to get the concrete poured this fall, but we want to still make sure that we get it done in the spring. That's why we're looking at the time frame. And it really depends on what the weather's going to be like next April, May, June, whether we'll be done in time frame. So that's why we're looking at feasibility of a time frame would be a variance that we would be allowed to continue parking out on East Merle Hibbs Boulevard. It's fortunate that we're on a end of a street. There's no other traffic other than business that comes to McFarland Clinic. So from that aspect, it's not a huge traffic safety issue, but we also don't want our staff to be getting ticketed. That will be the hard part for our staff. So that's what we're here for tonight, is to ask for some guidance and see if there's some support to help us get through this.
Your Honor, if I may ask a question?
Sure.
Hey, Ron,
Yes, Gary.
if we approve this, would you reimburse the city for the painting of the parking stalls on both sides of the street and restriping all that? Would you reimburse the city for that? And then I'm also, I'm assuming parallel parking on both sides of the street. You need that many spots, correct?
Actually, to answer your question regarding the painting on the street, I wasn't aware of that until I read this, that you actually wanted to restripe or repaint the street. So I saw that the number in there was around $1,400 or $1,500 if the street needed to be restriped. We were thinking only parking on the north side of Merle Hibbs Road. The property owner, there's not going to be any development on the north side. So our traffic's on the south side. So we didn't think that we needed to restripe both sides of the road. We honestly didn't think we had to restripe anything until we come up with this discussion. So does that answer your question,
Yeah,
Gary?
it does.
Okay.
Thank you. So you don't need enough spots on both sides.
No.
You just need the one on the north, the side on the north. And I'm assuming not going much further than the length of your property, correct?
That's correct. That's really, I mean, we have our peak. Our peak has been 10 vehicles out there. Usually on most days, it's 4 to 5. So it's not like, then some days there's maybe one out there. So that's what it's a hit or miss. But we know that Mondays and Tuesdays are our peak day, patient days. We have oncology. We have a lot of infusions going on. So that's actually driving our parking counts.
Well, Ron, the other thing, I don't know the legalities of striping. I would have to
Yeah.
defer to Heather on that. So I'll leave, I mean, that, I don't understand, like, if we don't have to restripe it, obviously that's the best thing, but if we do, would you?
I would commit to
Okay.
paying the $1,500 for restriping. So that would be our commitment to.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I was out there actually at the facility about a week ago, I guess, and I can attest to the parking is a little snug. I think this is an easy yes for the facility. And by the way, nice joint, really.
Oh, that's-
nice place.
It is.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
There's no traffic by there. Or anything like that. It's like at a dead-end road. I think we ought to just go ahead and honor this and let them have this. We could put it down for a year if that's good with you.
We won't need any longer than a year. We
Yeah,
hope
well,
to be
stuff
done.
happens. Let's
Yeah.
make sure we don't have to come back. And allow the parking on this side, on the north side.
It wouldn't hurt to have staff direction on that one.
Mr. Mayor, I want to chime in here a little bit. One, everything that's presented to me by staff right now, I have to say, where is that? And this was a place I had not driven by yet, given that, but we do believe it needs to be restriped because the way it's striped right now is a travel lane in each direction and a turning lane. I agree they need parking, but when they're parking in the street, they're taking up pretty much the entire driving lane. So to avoid some accidents and give some direction, right now we're telling people you have to drive in the turn lane. So if we just erase that turn lane in the part that's in front of their business temporarily, we believe that will be safe to do.
And I can't help but weigh in about the facility. I got a tour out there. I was really encouraged at the number of oncology patients that actually get treatment here instead of having to drive to Des Moines or Ames or Waterloo. And this is a good problem to have. So let's fix the temporary problem and go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think staff needs direction. I think there's a consensus about that.
Yeah, Your Honor, I'd like to make the motion that it's a no-brainer. Let's do this. Let's restripe and bring it back as a resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Bodyhoff? Yes. Nichols?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Hoop? Isom?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Our third discussion item, funding source of MCBD agreement for the year 2025. Central Business District for the MCBD. Those are acronym challenged.
Good evening, Diana Steiner, Finance Director. Just going to bring my memo up here. So the city currently has an agreement with Marshalltown Central Business District to maintain a Main Street program, including business development and retention in the urban renewal area 4, which is the downtown area. This has been the amount that we have paid them the last several years. The fiscal year 21 through 24, we used TIF, and then last year we used local option sales tax. When we bought this a year ago, before TIF certification time, there was a discussion about raising the amount given to MCBD, and nothing could really be settled on before it was time to certify for TIF. So we said it would be paid out of local option sales tax, and then the agreement was finally decided, and we settled on $95,000, which expires this coming June. So now that it's TIF certification time again, I wanted to bring it forward a little bit sooner, so if there's a discussion, we can talk about it. So if the council wants to renew the MCBD agreement, do you want to change the funding source back to TIF from local option sales tax? And what amount do you want to certify?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I want to just chime in here a little bit and add on to what Diana said. I think, given some of the legislative challenges regarding municipal finance we're going to be facing, staff would want to get this back into the TIF funding. It really is where it belongs. And then the amount doesn't necessarily have to be settled tonight, but it will be fairly quickly. But it is my recommendation that we get that back into the TIF funding source.
Council comments or questions first?
I agree, TIF for the full amount.
Other reactions? Public comment?
Mark Eaton, 1007 South 10th Avenue. So Central Business District seems to be a duplicative effort of the chamber. Next item, you're going to discuss giving the chamber TIF money. This Central Business District recently moved from the city center into the offices with the chamber. The Central Business District is paying rent to the chamber at a higher rate than they were paying in the city center. TIF is getting modified, as the city administrator mentioned, and no longer will any of the TIF programs be able to reach into the school district's money. So how are we splitting this TIF with the county? At what percentages? That comes directly out of our general fund. And we have a hole in our general fund of $132,000. I don't think we need to fund this group anymore. I think the chamber is capable of doing the work that the Central Business District is currently doing. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Your Honor, I'd like to chime in real quick.
You may.
Yeah, I guess I just want to sit there and say Marshalltown Central Business District obviously focuses on the downtown Marshalltown, whereas Marshall County Chamber of Commerce focuses on more than just the downtown of Marshalltown. Obviously different in their purpose and the goals that they're set out to do. So I disagree with everything that Mark stated, and I would, if the motion that Jeff stated earlier is still in place, I would second that motion.
Thank you. Motion is seconded. Any other comment by the public?
Good evening, Mayor Greer and councilors. Thank you. Cindy Parks, 127 East Main Street. I am president of the Marshalltown Central Business District at this time, and I would like to reiterate what the councilor said, is that we are a completely separate entity. We do have separate purposes. Ours is downtown development, economic development, design, making it a place to be. We thank you for your investment because we do have, we went through a market study and strategies meeting. We had we have strategies planned. We have 3 strategies planned: a community gathering space, thriving during downtown revitalization. That is a big, that's a big do coming up, and Deb will be one of the main players in helping with that, and business activation and development. So we are also part of the challenge grant with Main Street, Iowa. People like Zamora's and the Hopkins building were able to get those funds for improving the downtown and bringing upper story housing and new spaces for businesses to be, because we're a Main Street, Iowa program. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
John Hall, Marshalltown Area Chamber of Commerce. Just wanted to reiterate a little bit about the separate organizations. The Marshalltown Central Business District is a Main Street, Iowa program, which is a certification through the state of Iowa that, while I appreciate the admiration that Mr. Eaton has for our organization and our ability to do our work, we would not be able to take advantage of the same resources, tools, et cetera, from both the state program as well as the national Main Street program. We have appreciated having the Central Business District locate into our office space, though, to better align our resources, reduce duplication in things like printer leases and internet service. And while the space costs a little bit more, we know that the space is upgraded from where they were at. We love being able to have their board meet right on Main Street. That keeps their eye on the prize, as well as we've been able to provide some additional services through our admin staff to better support their organization and their mission as well. Because while our primary focus is not directed at downtown, we certainly believe and see the value of investing and improving our downtown. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Anybody wish to direct staff?
I'll officially make the motion that I proposed earlier, that we fund this from TIF for the full amount. And so I'd like to see that come back as a resolution.
I guess.
And I'll officially second that motion.
Okay. Roll call.
Kell?
Yes.
Lottiehoff?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Hoop?
No.
Isom?
Yes.
Very good. For those of you who haven't been to that office, the Hopkins building, that's where the meetings are being held, and the foot traffic and car traffic that you see and people looking in there just gives it way more life than either organization got when the chamber was at the now Mac building, Fisher Center, where you really couldn't see much of anything. And then the board meetings at the CBD meeting when they were in the city center were down in the basement where you can't see anything. So it's made both of them more visible, and it's kind of fun to see that synergy. Let's go on to the next discussion item.
Diana Steiner, Finance Director. So a similar issue. The city has an agreement with the Chamber of Commerce for Economic Development. The current contract ends this June. It was $50,000 a year for 5 years. It will automatically renew for successive one-year terms unless either party terminates or creates a new agreement. In the past, the city has certified this expense to the county auditor under Urban Renewal Area 3, which is downtown. The certifications are due in November, so that's why I'm bringing it forth right now. So same two questions. If the council wants to renew the chamber agreement, will you continue to use TIF funds? If so, I will include in our TIF certification. And do you want to use the same $50,000 amount or a different amount?
Thank you. Floor is open for discussion. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'll chime in on this one a little bit too, and to kind of clarify a little bit is there's going to have to be some process. We had a call today with our legal process to make sure, our legal counsel, to make sure we're set on this. So there will be some actions, probably in addition to just certifying it. But again, we just want clarification. If you want to keep it under TIF, which is my recommendation. And then this is a 5-year agreement, so it is time to negotiate for the next year. So then we'll spend time, and the agreements, the numbers that will come back for both of these two agreements, both the downtown and the chamber, will be something that we've discussed with them, and they're agreeable to. So again, recommendation is to keep this under TIF funding, and we'll bring back for further action.
Thank you. Council comment or questions? Any public discussion?
Mark Eaton, 1007 South 10th Avenue. So we're clear. We're taking this money out of the downtown TIF, giving it to the Chamber of Commerce for economic development work that's not in the downtown TIF because the Central Business District is doing the downtown development work. Again, the chamber is a lobby group. Its job is to lobby the government for its business members. Its meetings are not open to the public, and I have tried FOIA requesting information from them, and that has been a difficult process to get done. And according to Iowa law and the open meetings laws, which I've researched and had numerous discussions with the county attorney about, anything that binds the taxpayers' money has to be open records and open to the public. And the chamber's not been following that in the past years. And so I suggest if we're going to do this, that we put a chamber thingy on the agenda center and they post when there's agenda information for binding the taxpayers' money that they're going to use and discuss. Thank you.
John Hall, Marshalltown Area Chamber of Commerce. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the TIF Area 3. Is that also a downtown? No, I didn't believe so. So this is a separate TIF area, not in downtown. Appreciate all the research that's been done. Additionally, with research, you can find our 990 is very public online. Less than 5% of our efforts, time and energy go towards lobbying efforts. We are very public and transparent on where our resources go. And ultimately, those resources are all from private sources. So we appreciate being able to be here tonight on this item. As the city administrator alluded to, we knew that this 5-year agreement was coming up. Our intention was always to work through updating this agreement. Economic development's changed a lot in the last 5 years. We've gone through a global pandemic. Workforce is the #1 issue for our businesses. Very different than 5 years ago when this agreement was last put into place. And so waiting for new city administrator to get on the ground, wanted to have that opportunity to work with that individual, and now with Joe on board, wanted to work with him about what the true needs are from an economic development contract perspective before backing into a dollar amount on that. So appreciate moving this forward tonight, and look forward to the continued conversations about what the real needs are and how do we put together a contract that meets those. So thank you.
Other public comment? Let's see, we haven't given us.
May I ask a question of Diana on this one?
Go ahead.
This is Urban Renewal Area 3?
Yes,
Where is that?
south side.
Is that because was that originally set up because the chamber was in that area when they were in the Fisher Community
I
Center?
don't have the history of that. I don't know. I mean, they're, trying to do businesses. They're not the downtown, of course, area, which is 4. But south side would be Tyson's, Plum Supply. Those have TIF development agreements, McFarland. So.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Anybody wish to give staff direction?
Your Honor?
Yes.
I motion we continue this 5-year agreement and utilize TIF as the funding source.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
No.
Hoop,
No.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Very good. That carried. Staff has direction on that one. And then the last topic is general obligation borrowing for the year 2024.
Diana Steiner, Finance Director. Okay, so back in August, I brought you forth our capital improvement plan for projects that we wanted to borrow or suggested borrowing. So right now we have $11.3 million. So I have several issues tonight I want to talk to you about, and then we'll go back for discussions, but I'm just going to give you an overview first. So the first thing I want to talk about is our debt capacity. So under Iowa law, how you figure your legal limit is that it's 5% of your property tax valuations. So if we were just to go under Iowa law, we could borrow $37 million. But the city has a policy that says that we can only borrow 70% of that legal limit. So therefore, we can only borrow $9.8 million. You could change this, could change the policy, or you could just do an exception to raise it this particular time if you wanted to go higher. So that's what that's all about. The next issue I want to talk to you about is bank qualified debt. So for a calendar year, you can borrow $10 million and it's considered bank qualified. This means that banks can get a deduction up to 80% of their carrying costs from small qualified issues. So if we were to do the $10 million, we cannot do $10 million this calendar year because we already borrowed $13 million earlier this year for the state revolving fund. So if we wanted to be bank qualified, we'd have to wait till calendar year 2024. And then we would only be able to borrow $8.6 million because we have $1.3 million that we've already established for the state revolving fund sponsored project. And then the last issue is just timing. In normal times, we borrow in the fall. We have our bond sale in November, get our money in December. If we switched it to calendar year 24, we'd have the bond sale January 8th, and the bond closing would be February 6th. So, knowing all this, how do you want to proceed? Which year do you want to borrow? How much do you want to borrow? And which projects do you want to do?
Your Honor?
Yes.
So based on this listing for the projects in the CIP, which ones need a decision now or before January 1 to move forward?
We can wait till January to borrow for these items. If you recall from the last meeting, the Public Works Director said that the sidewalk gap project could just wait until a future borrowing anyway, if that's the council's desire.
Also, I mean, kind of this, some of this depends on the timeline for the Main Street project as well, because I don't think that's construction is going to happen next calendar year. So does it even need to be in this borrowing cycle?
Heather, do you want to take this one?
The downtown next phase is East Main Street from 3rd Ave to Center, and then Center from Church to State. Currently, the process is on hold from a design standpoint as we're working through some creative placemaking and wayfinding items. If that proceeds here, let's say in the next 3 months with continuing with design, the intent would be that the project would go out for bid in the fall of 2024 with construction not to start till 2025.
So Diane, what does that mean for dollars on the line at that point in time? Does the borrowing need to be in place prior to that, or does that come in increments after that point?
Well, for many projects, we do like to have the cash in hand, just so when you're going out for bid, you can sign the contract because you're obligating the city. Just kind of some of the differences. So if you're bank qualified, then you would save about 0.25% in interest. And by delaying it in borrowing in January, then, you'd save 2 months interest between normally borrowing in November versus January, closing the bond. But, once you switch to borrowing in January, February, now you're kind of committed to that because if you're always going to try and do bank qualified, because you only have $10 million a calendar year.
Your Honor, if I may. Question for Heather. The State Street Stormwater Outlet, how necessary is that this year?
The State Street Stormwater Outlet, there's actually two projects. We were gonna, from a borrowing standpoint, the previous city administrator asked us to split those into 2 separate years. But what that is right now State Street's under construction and they're installing storm sewer. That storm sewer is at a lower elevation than what it's connecting to, so it's gonna sit with water until that outlet is tied further downstream. So this outlet is taking the area on the west side of the project, taking it another block of storm sewer to the west and then a half a block north, and that's what this one is shown to be. And then the next storm water outlet, I believe, is on the Avenue side going north to Lincoln. So again, is it important? I would say it's important. Timing-wise, we can continue to maintain it and for a year or 2 years with jetting and those kind of things, but as a long-term practice, we would not like it to keep without an elevation outlet at the elevation that it is today.
And then a follow-up question, the street improvement, the 3 million, that is in addition to the road use tax, correct?
The intent of that money is slightly different than what road use tax money is currently budgeted for. The intent of that $3 million of street improvements is intended to go towards what we're considering street improvement plan that goes towards existing streets today, whether that's crack sealing, joint sealing, but it's more above and beyond the items that are currently funded with road use tax, such as patching.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
Other comments by the council?
Yeah, Heather, where are we at with East Main Street from Fifth Avenue on east?
Yep, the plans were submitted for final permitting through DNR about a month and a half ago. They generally say a 2-month turnaround in permitting, getting that issued. I think they're a little behind right now, so I don't know if we're a month away or 2 months away from getting their sign off. I know city staff has been working on obtaining permissions, and I think they've got almost all of them. I think there's just a couple remaining left on that project, and then the intent is to go out this fall for bid on that project.
Thank
you. Anyone else up here before we turn it over to public comment?
I guess for clarity, I have one more question. The real question here is just asking for the amount we want to borrow and timing, correct? We can go back and revisit, because there's a gap. There's a $2 million gap just under that between what's in the plan and what we can borrow for. Do those two questions have to be decided together, or are they independent questions?
So you could do an exception to the policy or change the policy so you're not limited. See if I sum it up. So you're not limited to the $9.8 million.
And to be clear, that's not just to go blindly borrow money, but
Right.
to maximize the amount we borrow, there needs to be some changes or concessions to what's already in the plan. And is that permissible?
Yes. Because if you look at the next fiscal year, you can see that it jumps significantly. Because last January, when the county assessor went out, they increased valuations. So we'll be able to borrow more next year. But this is kind of a one-time thing we're stuck in.
Your Honor, I guess I would, right now, knowing what we know today, and we can, you said we could change, we can make some changes here. I would propose that we move forward with the 9.8 million. So I would take away the sidewalk gap project, leave the downtown at 7.146, leave the State Street stormwater at 710,000, and then for now, just so we can move forward with this borrowing, decrease the street improvements to 1,944,000 if I did the math right, and that puts us right at 9.8. And then we can add, correct, after the first of the year.
Your example, you were borrowing this calendar year. Yes.
I would say tonight, I'm throwing this out there, move forward with borrowing the 9.8, which is our cap.
And then next fall, when I come back, we can borrow 10 million. well, 10 million minus the sponsored project, the 8.6 million.
Do you have any projection of what our interest rate's going to be?
When I asked Financial Spear, she said city with our bond rating is running around 4 to 4.5%.
And in that interim, we can reinvest into any other financial tools or markets, such as the CD, like we just refinanced for, right?
Right, but you only have so much period of time before you have to, if you make more interest than your bond is, then you have to repay it for the interest.
Your Honor. But we have money already borrowed, the projects we haven't started or even, finalized. We can pull that money into assisting this down the road, like the quiet zones. And that's one example that comes to my mind. We borrowed that money, correct?
We borrowed for the quiet zone. It would take action from the council to use it for a different purpose.
And I'm assuming there's a few others, correct?
There's other street projects that haven't started. There's some projects that have started a little bit, but, we got time to spend them yet.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Because my question on all this is, we keep increasing our debt. How are we ever going to get? Is there any plan to reduce it, or are we going to stay up against our top as much as we can all the time?
That's council action. That's what we go, bring you the list and you agree or disagree. We put it in our capital improvement plan, but that's why we just come back before we actually borrow the money. So maybe I'll just lead this a little bit. Would you consider changing the policy so you're not capped at the 5% of the 70%?
Your Honor, I'll go first on that one, if I may. I would not.
I would not either.
Anyone else want to speak to that?
So Gary, your last comment was a near motion.
I'll make an official motion, if I may, Your Honor, that we lower the 11.356 by removing the sidewalk gap projects, leaving the downtown implementation plan phase 2, leaving the State Street stormwater outlet, and then lowering the street improvements at this time to whatever number it needs to be. I think it was 1944 to keep us at that 9.8 million. And then I would also, that's the motion. I don't want to confuse it.
Second.
Roll call.
Nichols?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Hoop?
Yes.
Isom?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Lottiehoff?
Yes.
Okay, and then are we borrowing this calendar year or next calendar year?
Your Honor, if I may. I have a feeling the interest rates are going to go up. As much as I hate to say it, as much as our new counselor is going to bite my head off, I'd say borrow it this year.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Kell?
Yes.
Lottiehoff?
Yes.
Nichols?
No.
Schneider?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Hoop? Isom?
Yes.
That carried. Staff has direction on the amount and the year. Thank you. With that discussion ending, it is time to adjourn. The time is about 6:23 p.m. Thanks for attending.
7:23. 7:23. 6:23.